You're in a cozy cafe, minding your own business with your kid, when some entitled jerk slaps you right across the face in front of everyone. What do? Do you hit back? Or do you show the world what real strength looks like? Stick around because this true story from Real Life Echo will blow your mind and might just change how you handle bullies forever. If you're loving these real-life tales of quiet heroes, hit that like button right now and subscribe to Real Life Echo for more inspiring stories that hit home. Let's dive in. The air in the cafe was thick with the smell of roasted beans and the quiet hum of afternoon conversations. It was the kind of place where people tapped on laptops and lovers held hands over half-eaten croissants. For me, it was a sanctuary, a warm, safe bubble where my son Noah and I could escape the silence of our small apartment on a drizzly Tuesday. Noah was 6. He had his mother's eyes, a startling shade of blue that could make you forget all the bad in the world. He also had her quiet. Since we lost her 2 years ago, he'd become a whisper of the boy he used to be. He didn't speak much anymore. Not since the accident. The doctors called it selective mutism, a trauma response. I called it my daily heartbreak. He was building a magnificent castle out of sugar packets, his small brow furrowed in concentration. I was nursing a black coffee, watching him, trying to pour all the love I had into that little boy so he might one day feel whole again. That's when the peace shattered. The cafe door slammed open, letting in a gust of cold wind and a man radiating a different kind of chill. He was tall, built like he spent his life in a gym, but with a soft, entitled look of someone who'd never had a single real fight in his life. He was on his phone, his voice a loud, aggressive bark that cut through the gentle ambience. "I don't care what the contract says, you imbecile. I want it done yesterday. Do you have any idea who I am?" He was the kind of guy who expected the world to part for him, and it usually did. He strutted to the counter, still yelling, and placed his order without acknowledging the barista, a young woman named Clara, who was trying her best to be polite. When his complicated, sugar-free, non-fat, extra-hot oat milk latte with a sprinkle of cinnamon wasn't ready in 30 seconds, he slammed his fist on the counter. "What is this? A soup kitchen? Move it." Noah flinched. His little hands stopped stacking the sugar packets. He looked up at me, his blue eyes wide with a fear that made my chest tighten. I gave him a small, reassuring smile and placed a gentle hand on his arm. "It's okay, buddy. Some people just forgot their manners today." The man got his coffee and turned, scanning the room for a seat. His eyes landed on the small table next to ours, the only one left. "Perfect." He swaggered over, his expensive leather shoes squeaking on the worn wooden floor. As he squeezed past our table, his coat brushed against Noah's elbow, sending the entire sugar packet castle tumbling into a chaotic heap. Noah's face crumpled. He stared at the fallen masterpiece, his lower lip trembling. He didn't cry, which was somehow worse. He just looked at me with that silent devastation. I took a slow breath. "Excuse me," I said, my voice calm and even. "You knocked over my son's castle." The man didn't even turn around. He just sat down, pulling out his laptop. "Kids shouldn't be making a mess in public," he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. A hot coal of anger burned in my stomach, but I kept my face neutral. For Noah. I always kept it neutral for Noah. "I'm not asking for an apology for myself," I said, my tone still level, "but you could look at him and say you're sorry. It would mean a lot." That got his attention. He slowly turned his head, a condescending smirk playing on his lips. He looked me up and down. I was in a worn flannel shirt, jeans with a small tear at the knee and work boots. My hands were calloused from my job as a carpenter. To him I was invisible. Just another working stiff. He leaned towards our table. "Or what?" he sneered. "You going to make me?" I stood up slowly. I didn't want a scene. I never wanted a scene. But I wouldn't let him intimidate my son. "I'm just asking for a little common decency," I said quietly. He stood up too, using his height to try and tower over me. He was a couple of inches taller. "Listen, pal. Why don't you take your brat and his little sugar mess and get out of here before I make you?" My jaw tightened. "The only person leaving is you. Finish your coffee and go." That was the wrong thing to say. His ego, already bloated, couldn't handle the defiance. He glanced around, making sure he had an audience. This entitled peacock needing his validation. Then, with a swift, casual cruelty, he backhanded me across the face. It wasn't a punch. It was a slap. A demeaning, humiliating slap meant to put me in my place. The sound cracked through the cafe like a gunshot. A woman gasped. Clara, the barista, dropped a mug. My head snapped to the side and I felt the sting bloom on my cheek. My first thought wasn't of the pain. It was of Noah. I turned my head, my eyes immediately finding his. His face was pale, his small body rigid with terror. He was staring at the man, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in 2 years. Not just fear but a flicker of anger. A protective fury for his dad. He was on the verge of something, and I knew I had to control this situation immediately. The man was puffing his chest out, waiting for me to cower, to crumble. He was waiting for the victim he expected me to be. I straightened up. I didn't rub my cheek. I didn't shout. I just looked at him. And in that moment, the mask of the weary, gentle single dad I wore for Noah every single day simply slid away. The man who looked back at the bully was someone else entirely. My eyes, which Noah saw as full of love and patience, became flat, cold, assessing. It was the gaze of a predator, not prey. I took one step closer to him. Just one. It wasn't aggressive, but it was deliberate. My voice when I spoke was no longer calm. It was a low, quiet rumble that held the promise of absolute violence. It was a voice that had been used to give orders in environments where a wrong word meant death. That was a mistake, I said. He saw it. The change in my eyes, the change in my posture, the air around me seemed to shift. He was a bully, a shark in the small pond of a corporate office, but he had just bumped into something far, far bigger in the deep ocean. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. His bravado was cracking. Yeah, he stammered, trying to reclaim his ground. And what are you going to do about it, carpenter boy? He didn't see the man approaching from behind him. None of them did. It was a guy in his late 50s with close-cropped gray hair and a build like a refrigerator. He'd been sitting in the corner reading a newspaper. He folded it slowly and stood up. He walked over and stood right behind the bully. "Hey, Derek," the gray-haired man said, his voice as calm and dangerous as mine. The bully Derek spun around. The look of confusion on his face was quickly replaced by one of recognition and then sheer unadulterated terror. "Colonel Steele," Derek whispered, his face draining of all color. "I didn't see you there, sir." Colonel Steele ignored him completely. He looked at me, his old, tired eyes holding a deep respect. "Major," he said with a small, respectful nod. "It's good to see you. Although I see some things never change. Still cleaning up other people's messes." The word major hung in the air like a thunderclap. The entire cafe was silent. You could hear the coffee machine hissing in the background. Derek looked from the colonel to me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Major," he croaked. I kept my eyes on Derek, that flat, dangerous look still in them. "It's been a while, Colonel," I said, my voice returning to its normal, quiet tone. "I'm not in the service anymore." "Once a Delta Force operator, always a Delta Force operator," the colonel said, his eyes now fixed on Derek with utter contempt. "You never lose it. It's in the bones." He took a step closer to Derek. "This man, you pathetic piece of work, has done more for this country by breakfast than you will in your entire miserable life. He's been on missions you can't even imagine in places you've never heard of. He stared down enemies that would make you wet yourself. And you? You slapped him in a coffee shop because your latte was late and a child's game disturbed your Royal Highness." Derek looked like he was about to be sick. He turned back to me, his eyes wide with panic. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I leaned in, my voice a whisper only he could hear. "It shouldn't matter who I am or what I used to do. It should matter that I'm a father and you terrified my son. Apologize to him." He immediately turned to Noah, who was watching the whole scene with wide, unblinking eyes. "I'm so sorry, kid. I'm so sorry. I'm a jerk. It was a stupid accident." Noah just stared at him. Then slowly his gaze moved from the trembling bully to me. And in that look I saw it. Not just fear or confusion. I saw. He had just seen a side of his father he never knew existed. He saw the man who had protected his country, capable of a terrifying stillness, but who had chosen to use his words to demand an apology for him. He saw strength not in the slap that could have been, but in the restraint that was shown. Derek, dismissed by everyone, grabbed his coat and laptop and fled, his expensive shoes squeaking a frantic retreat out the door. The silence he left behind was profound. Then Clara started clapping. A few others joined in. It wasn't for me. It was for the quiet dignity of a father protecting his son. Colonel Steele walked over, put a firm hand on my shoulder and squeezed. "You did good, son. You always did." He glanced at Noah, gave him a gentle wink and then walked out himself, leaving me alone in the new respectful quiet of the cafe. I sat back down, my heart hammering against my ribs. I reached out and gently touched the red mark on my cheek. Noah was staring at me. I expected him to be more frightened, more withdrawn. Instead, he reached out a tentative hand and placed it on my arm. Then he spoke. "Daddy," he whispered, his voice raspy from disuse. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. "You didn't hit him." Tears welled in my eyes. I shook my head. No, buddy. I didn't. What? He asked, his little brow furrowed. He was mean. I pulled him onto my lap and held him tight. Because Noah, being strong isn't about hitting back. It's about being able to, but choosing not to. It's about protecting the people you love, not with your fists but with your heart. That man was weak. He needed to prove he was strong by being mean. But real strength is quiet. It's patient. It's for the people who need you to be strong for them. He was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then he looked at the fallen sugar packets. Can we build a new castle? A bigger one. A smile broke through my tears. Yeah, buddy. We can build the biggest castle in the world. And there, in that warm little cafe, surrounded by the scent of coffee and the lingering echoes of a confrontation, we did. We built a castle packet by packet. And every time Noah placed one, he would look at me and smile, a real smile full of light. He had found his voice again. And in finding it, he had given me back a piece of my own heart. Looking back, that day wasn't about me being dealt a force. It was about me being a dad. It was a lesson not just for my son but for me. We spend so much of our lives trying to be tough for the world, but the only armor that ever truly matters is the one we build around the hearts of the people we love. I remember my own father telling me something similar when I was a kid. I got into a fight at school with a boy who was picking on my little sister. I came home with a bloody nose and a black eye, but I was proud. My dad sat me down, cleaned me up, and said, "You protected your sister. That's good. But remember, the loudest man in the room is usually the most scared. Don't ever fight because you're angry. Only fight if you have to protect someone who can't protect themselves." That day in the cafe with Noah watching, I finally understood what he meant. You know, stories like this remind us that real heroism isn't in big explosions or fancy titles. It's in those small moments where we choose kindness over chaos, restraint over revenge. On Real Life Echo, we share these echoes of real life to inspire you, to make you think about your own stories. Have you ever faced a bully and chosen the high road? Or maybe you've seen quiet strength in someone you love. Think about it as we go deeper. Let's pause for a second and reflect on that cafe scene. Picture yourself there. The smell of coffee, the tension in the air. What would you have done? Would you have stepped in like the colonel or held back like I did? These questions keep us engaged, right? They make us feel part of the story. Let me tell you more about Noah. After that day, things started to change slowly. He began talking a bit more each week. First, it was simple words at home, then sentences at school. It wasn't overnight, but that moment in the cafe cracked open the door. We built more than sugar castles after that. We built forts in the living room with blankets and pillows, laughing as we did. I'd tell him bits about my past, not the scary parts but the teamwork, the bonds with my unit. It helped him see me as more than just dad, but as someone who had faced real danger and come out stronger. And you know what? That strength isn't just for soldiers. It's for parents, teachers, anyone who stands up for what's right without throwing a punch. Think about the bully Derek. I wonder what happened to him after that. Did he learn anything? Or did he go back to his office, yelling at more people? Bullies like him thrive on fear, but when they meet real resolve, it shakes them. That's the power of quiet strength. It's not flashy, but it lasts. In my Delta days, we trained for that. Hours in the field, learning to stay calm under fire. That training saved lives, including mine. But applying it in a cafe? That saved my son's trust. Stories on Real Life Echo like this one show how military lessons translate to everyday life. Maybe you've got a story from your job or family where patience won the day. I'd love to hear it. As the weeks turned into months, Noah and I visited that cafe often. Clara would give us extra sugar packets, smiling every time. The regulars nodded at us with respect. It became our spot, a reminder that even in tough times, good can come from bad. Losing my wife was the hardest thing ever. The accident took her instantly, leaving me with a broken heart and a silent boy. But moments like this showed me we're resilient. We heal bit by bit. If you're going through loss, know that. Time doesn't erase pain, but it softens it. And sharing stories helps. That's why Real Life Echo exists, to echo those real moments that connect us all. Let me share a similar story I heard from a friend. He was a cop, dealing with a rowdy guy at a bar. Instead of escalating, he talked him down, shared a coffee, and the guy opened up about his bad day. No arrest, just understanding. See, strength in words. These tales keep us hooked because they're real. They make you think, what if that was me? That's the magic. Now, imagine if Noah had stayed silent forever. That slap could have shut him down more. But it sparked something. His first words after years, "Daddy." Chills, right? Every parent dreams of hearing their kid's voice again. It was my miracle. Expanding on my past, Delta Force wasn't glamorous like movies. It was grit, sweat, and split-second decisions. Missions in the dark, relying on your team. But fatherhood? That's the ultimate mission. No medals, but the rewards are bigger. Noah's smile beats any commendation. If you're a dad listening, you get it? Protect with love, not force. My dad taught me that, and now I'm passing it to Noah. Generations of quiet strength. On Real Life Echo, we celebrate these chains of wisdom. Let's talk about the Colonel. Old Steel, a legend in our circles. He trained me, pushed me to my limits. Seeing him, there was fate. He didn't need to step in, but he did. That's brotherhood. Even out of uniform, it holds. Derek's face when he recognized him, priceless. Terror in his eyes. But no violence needed. Words cut deeper sometimes. That's a lesson for all. In today's world, with so much anger online and off, choosing calm stands out. It inspires. Like this story inspires me to share more on Real Life Echo. As time passed, Noah asked about my service. I told him age-appropriate bits, teamwork, helping people. He drew pictures of soldiers building castles, not fighting. Sweet how. It healed us both. The red mark on my cheek faded fast, but the memory lingers as a badge of honor. Not for the slap, but for holding back. Real strength is restraint. My dad would be proud. He passed years ago, but his words echo. The loudest man is the most scared. True then, true now. Wrapping this up, that cafe day taught me life's battles are often small but profound. We fight for our kids, our values, with heart over fists. If this touched you, reminded you of your own quiet wins or a loved one's strength, drop a comment below. Share your story. What's your moment of real strength? And if it moved you, share this video with a friend. Could inspire them too. Thanks for watching on Real Life Echo. Remember, the greatest missions are at home, building castles and hearts. See you next time.